just a hack. He's just an absolute hack. And he gets his ass kicked by his teammates every week. It's just, it's terrible. It's just terrible.
Welcome back to another episode of the Believe in NFL Draft Prospects podcast. Took a day off for Memorial Day. We are back talking about another position group during our summer scouting series. And that position group, we are moving on to tight ends, which is an exciting class. It's got one supremely talented player at the top in Michael Mayer, who we're going to talk about today. It's got another very talented player who we haven't seen much of, but are going to get to see more of him this season in Arik Gilbert, the former LSU, now Georgia tight end. So as we've done so far, we've done these prospect comparison shows, and now we're going to do that for the first tight end pairing on today's episode. Ryan, are you excited to talk about these guys?
I mean, yeah, today is going to be a really fun one, I think, because, we're going to talk a lot about Mayer, obviously, but, if Gilbert hits near his potential, then he's definitely in the conversation atop the class. There's no question about that at all, and I'm excited about this week in general because I think there's a lot of projection that needs to happen with this class a little bit, but there's a lot of traits, man. There's guys that we're not even going to get to this week that are really talented football players. Like, I don't even think we're talking about like Benjamin Yurisak out of Stanford this week because we just didn't have enough time, and Dalton Kincaid out of Utah was an All-American on the division FCS level.
FCS,
excuse me. Yeah, I'm sorry. I almost said Division II. I forgot. I wasn't clowning FCS. I just for a second thought. Sure. I for a second forgot that San Diego was an FCS school and not a. I thought they were Division II for a second. Rip.
So put some respect on Josh Johnson's name.
I'm trying, man. I'm trying. Oh, and Jim Harbaugh too.
And Jim Harbaugh.
Yes, yes. Well, all that to say though, man, is there's a lot of talented players that we weren't even able to get to this week. There is one player that I think is pretty much a slam dunk player, and there's a lot of projection after it. But overall, again, the couple names that we weren't able to get to. There's a kid like Brevin Spann Ford, who's a 6'7", 270-pound kid out of Minnesota.
Holy crap.
Yeah, man, he's actually a decent athlete, Joe. Like, he can run a little bit for 6'7", 270. So there's a lot of talent in this group, man. There's a lot of projection outside of the very top of the class, but could end up being a really good tight end group if a few of these guys hit.
And I think talking about these two guys really sets us up for an interesting week because both these players are in the conversation, one way more than the other, for who the best in the class is. But as you're talking about with Arik Gilbert, he has a lot of potential, and we're going to talk about that on today's show. Before we do that, folks, I just want to tell you about BetOnline. Our partners at BetOnline continue to be the number one source for all of your betting needs and sports info. Find all the latest sports developments, including updated odds on the NBA and NHL playoffs, Major League Baseball fights, and even next season's NFL futures. BetOnline is your continued source for all of your sports wagering needs, including live betting and your favorite Vegas casino and poker games. It's super easy to get started, so head to their website today or use your mobile device to join and use our promo code BELIEVE to receive your 50% welcome bonus on your first deposit. BetOnline, where the game starts. All right, Ryan. So Michael Mayer, hitting and going into him first.
Yep.
Watching him, I have to say, immediately the first thing that stands out to me is his size and his build. And I was thinking about one thing we have to consider when talking about these tight ends, because you're talking about guys that were sophomores last year, a good number of these guys. People, I think, need to acknowledge developing as a tight end might be one of the most difficult positions to physically develop into. A lot of these kids are recruited. Some of them were like offensive linemen. Some of them were wide receivers coming out of high school and they get moved to tight end. Some of those that were tight end recruits don't really have the weight and the strength to be an effective blocker at the level for them to be dominant. But a guy like Michael Mayer comes in immediately as a freshman, almost already developed into the body of a junior coming out for the NFL draft. And to see a player of this build and to know that he's been doing the things that he was able to do for 2 years, it's scary to watch this guy because I think he's probably the most well-rounded tight end prospect we've had in a very, very long time as a blocker and as a receiver.
Yeah, and I think the body type is an interesting way to start the conversation, Joe, honestly, because, I posted a picture of him in high school the other day. He went to a school in Kentucky, Covington Catholic, and I mean, honestly, and this is sometimes hyperbole that people throw out there a little bit, but I truly think from a physical perspective, he could have competed in the NFL as a freshman. Like I really do. I'm not saying that he would have went in there and been a
Dominated.
star and
Yeah.
been a starter and done all that type of stuff, but I'm saying he would have been drafted in the NFL and he would have looked the part. Like he would have belonged in that conversation. And now he's going into his junior year, and I just saw him in person a couple months ago at the open spring practice, and man, the kid is just physically put together. And I think the one thing that pops out most about Mayer is because he can do all the things that you talked about a little bit, right? Like he's an all-around kid where there's still improvement that needs to happen at the point of attack from a blocking perspective, but the flashes are incredible, man. Like he has some insane flashes in the run game. He's got the big body stuff as a pass catcher that you really love. But the thing that I think that people kind of undersell about him, Joe, in my opinion, is because of the body type is you would assume that he's a linear dude, but I don't think so. I think he runs routes, man. Like I think he's one of the better route running tight ends I've seen come out in a couple of years. Like this kid is smooth, fluid, and gets in and out of breaks as well as anybody, especially at that size. So yeah, I'm all in on Michael Mayer, man. I know there's going to be a homer talk because there's an Irish breakdown flag behind me.
Who
but
cares?
the kid is, I mean, what's the hole in him, man? What's the hole? Because people are going to say speed, but I think he's a 4.6 something kid. Like, I don't think he's slow.
If he's 4.65, that's not slow. And then the added context, even if he's a 4.7 guy, the added context of him, he's not a vertical threat tight end. He is a possession tight end. He is a good route runner. He's got really, really nice hands, and he's a really good blocker. That's what you're getting with a guy like a Michael Mayer, who is going to come in. He's going to add value to the run game. Like you said, I think watching him one-on-one, like didn't look great against Myjai Sanders, which one-on-one, he's not going to dominate him, but he had some mistakes with hand placement that I saw, some mistakes with leverage, which led to him getting beaten these one-on-one reps. But I watch him chip guys when he's going, these chip blocks with help on a tackle, and he's completely knocking these guys off balance, which is what you want a tight end to do, to completely disrupt a play like that. I almost at first was watching him, and I saw some of those mistakes in his blocking, and I'm thinking to myself, like, man, he could really be better at this and better at that. But then I reminded myself, this guy's a sophomore. He was a sophomore last year. He's going into his junior year. To do some of the things that he does with his play strength, I think needs to be properly praised for his capability.
Yeah, and I think the best part of his blocking right now is what he does in space, man. When he gets on linebackers, corners, safeties, like, I mean, he puts people in caskets. Like, just be honest about it, man.
I
Like,
will say he is
Yeah.
very aggressive downfield. The only thing I would just like him to stop doing is he tends to, and it's so easy to do that when you're the big kid and you're going after someone smaller than you, is just to try and go and start shoving guys downfield. Whenever he latches on to guys and starts driving them, yes, 100%, he's killing dudes. But he just needs to stop doing you know what I'm talking about, where he starts shoving guys like that. I feel like that doesn't do a whole lot.
Yeah, no, I get. I think there's
I'm nitpicking.
No, I mean a little bit, but it's not a big deal. I mean, it's a talking point for sure. I would say there's blocking in space is naturally kind of a hard thing, right? So it's just kind of aiming points in space. Like it's tough. It gets tough sometimes. I'll say this: the only thing that I would really knock him honestly at this point is because I think that he's going to run the seam more than he did in the past. Because I think he's a good athlete. I think he's linearly sufficient, good in that area. I think he's a good route runner. I think he's really physical after the catch. I mean, the dude turns into an absolute bulldozer after the catch. The one thing that I think that he needs to improve on a little bit outside the blocking, just get some hand placement and aiming points and how to attack leverage type of things, which will get better because he has every profile to do it. He does have some inopportune drops at times, and that's not a hand strength issue because, I mean, the kid, when he is fully dialed in, he's got great hands, man. Like nothing, like clamps it, highest point, extends for the football. All that stuff's good. There's just sometimes where he gets a little antsy to turn out field a little too quick, and there's just a little bit of concentration drops. So that stuff can be fixed because I don't think it's an actual bad hands or bad hand-eye coordination type of thing. I think it's literally the kid turns into a bulldozer after the catch, so he's starting to try to start that process a little too quick.
And stuff like that is like an experience and a patience issue. And like you said, you can coach that out of guys. I agree on that point where I don't see it being like a hands issue, him having issues catching the football and securing the football. It's just mostly his patience in those situations. So, I mean, like we're sitting here and I admit too that I did feel like at times I had to try and nitpick to find issues with him. And it was really hard to find issues for a guy that's going to be a junior this year. I mean, like, how high would you draft a Michael Mayer like this? I mean, again, he's not a Kyle Pitts athlete. He's not going to be that fast. He's not going to be that explosive. Arik Gilbert might be, who we're going to talk about in a second. But
Yeah.
how high are we drafting a guy like Michael Mayer? Is he a top 10 pick?
Yes, I think so. He's different than Kyle Pitts, right? So he might not be a top 5 player in the class because, I mean, Kyle Pitts is going to be a perennial 1,000-yard receiver every single year just with the athleticism. But then when you talk about how they're going to, what the role is going to be at the next level, you're also not going to ask Kyle Pitts to do some of the things that you're going to ask Michael Mayer to do. Like, it's just not, they're just not an apples to apples conversation. I would say this, Joe, the guy that pops in my head every time I watch Michael Mayer, little different, but I think from a role and projectability perspective, this is what I'm looking at here. Think the best version of Greg Olsen when he was with the Carolina Panthers. Like, that's why I see a little bit, like they are a lot smoother and a lot looser athletes than you would think because they're both, pretty big dudes. And Greg Olsen could break some tackles and he was a good blocker and he was a hands catcher. And I even think that Michael Mayer has a higher upside as far as from a physical perspective. But when you look at the best of Greg Olsen, I mean, he was a perennial 1,000-yard receiver. The difference between Pitts and Mayer is I think that Michael Mayer can be a 1,000-yard tight end on the next level. Just the difference is it's going to take him 80 catches to do it as opposed to 60 catches that it's going to take a Kyle Pitts to do it, right? Like they're just a little bit fundamentally different. But if I guaranteed, and there's no guarantees in the NFL draft, but if I said to you right now that the best of Michael Mayer long-term is going to be what we got from Greg Olsen when he was with the Panthers long-term, would you draft that player top 10? I think I would.
Yeah,
100%. I think I would. Yeah.
Well, because you're talking about having a guy that is going to be a really impactful receiver in your offense. You're not necessarily going to build an entire offense around him, but having those Gronkowskis, those Kelseys, having those options for your quarterback to dump the ball off to, even if it's just them running a drag route across the middle of the field, having an option like that reliability is what makes an offense move forward when it's not just requiring your wide receivers to be the options all the time, having that much of an impact where this guy is going to catch a football. But on top of that, he's an extension of the offensive line. Kyle Pitts can't do any of that stuff. Kyle Pitts is nowhere near the blocker. He's a receiver. He's a big receiver that they're playing in a tight end role. He's not going to chip guys the way that you see Michael Mayer doing it. So that impact as a blocker and the ability to develop even more as a blocker, those two things alone, I think, make him good enough to be, without a doubt, a top 10 pick. I wouldn't be shocked if he falls out of the top 10 because we sat here last year saying that Kyle Hamilton deserves to be a top 5 pick and he goes 14, as the NFL always overthinks these guys. But regardless, top 10 pick, I think he certainly deserves it.
Yeah, I mean, I guess my conversation piece is that he's a top 10 player in the class. Yeah. Like, will he be a top 10 pick? We'll see. We don't know what the board looks like. We don't know who takes the steps forward, all that good conversation and context to the situation. All I know is that Michael Mayer's ready to play football in the NFL this second. Like, I don't need to see him play. He could be one of those rare players. We saw, going from sophomore to junior, we saw Jamar Chase opt out, Penei Sewell opt out. And it didn't end up hurting them, really, in any regard. He's the same type of player. Like, Michael Mayer could miss his entire junior year for whatever reason, opt out or whatever the case might be, and you don't need to see another thing from him. Like, he's just that dude. And kind of like what you're saying is, yes, you're not going to ask Kyle Pitts to do the things that Michael Mayer does. Michael Mayer is also not going to be the tight end where you're going to ask him to play in the slot more than 50% of the time. You're not going to ask him to play, in the boundary a decent amount as a wide. Like, he's not that true outside type of tight end that can kind of displace, do the Darren Waller type of stuff, right? But as a inline tight ends, big slot at points, H-back, there's so many mismatches that you can create, man. Like this, I really think this kid's going to be a high volume receiver at the next level. I think he's going to be a plus blocker. I think that he's going to be a physically demanding player on the next level. So I'm all in on Michael Mayer, man. Top 10 player in this class. I wouldn't be surprised if he takes another step forward if he's a top 5 player in this class for me. Again, probably won't go top 5 in the draft just because tight ends don't usually typically go there, but he's a fantastic football player. There's no doubt.
Now, the other guy that we're going to talk about here is strictly all projection because in 2020 at LSU, Arik Gilbert was really, really freaking good. He was fantastic. He was dominant. He was the bright spot on an offense that was terrible in 2020. And he has all of these, not off the field issues, but some need, a need to take a step back, and you don't fully know what's going on in some of these players' lives. So there's no judgment there. There is some weight issues, and he ends up at Georgia. And I feel like we didn't even fully know if Arik Gilbert was actually going to ever play football again or what the deal is with that. And suddenly he's being thrust into the conversation, competing for tight end 1 with Michael Mayer. Now, I don't think that's fair to do to Mayer, nor do I feel like that's fair from an evaluation standpoint to give a guy a nod who we haven't even seen play football in a year. But there is a lot of freaking stuff to get excited about watching Arik Gilbert, Ryan. But we need to go over the issues outside of football, though. Yep. Can you shed some of the light? Because I know that you've definitely done a lot of research on a guy like this.
Yeah, I mean, so he was a 5-star recruit, fantastic player going to LSU, like you said. He ends up transferring after the lone season. He goes to Georgia. And it was kind of, I remember a huge talking point in the preseason because he was listed as a wide receiver on the roster. And you're just kind of like, huh? He's playing wide receiver
way
now.
Way too big to be a wide receiver.
And at that point, he was listed at like 6'5", 245, 250, somewhere in that ballpark. Well, he steps away from the game. You don't really ever get clear clarification why, but he misses the entire year because of personal reasons. He's kind of working through or whatever. Apparently, the conversation comes out this offseason that at one point, or he showed up to Georgia, it sounds like, at about 300 pounds, man. And again, he was playing at LSU, and if you saw him, I mean, he was a slender-looking kid, so he was probably 245, 250 at that point. So he gained a lot of weights. What reasons? I don't know. I'm not going to speculate. I don't know what the reasons were. But he goes there. He's obviously too big. He's obviously out of shape. Maybe that goes in the conversation for missing the season. I don't know. All I know is that he comes into Georgia this year. He's right around 265. He played in their G-Day game, which is their spring game. And I watched some of the highlights from the G-Day game because, again, you're going back to 2020 LSU film, and that's pretty much all you have. So I went and I looked at some of the Georgia spring game highlights. He looks better. It looks, I would say it's 265. Like
he looks massive.
He does look massive. Like he looks like a true tight end. But the thing is still, Joe, you're in an offense now where, excuse me, Brock Bowers is an All-American tight end. Mm-hmm. Darnell Washington is another tight end that was a really high recruit for them. That's a 6'7", 265-pound kid. And then you have Gilbert. So there's a logjam at tight end. So it appears again that Gilbert is going to play more of a wide receiver role. He's going to play in the slot a ton. He's going to play out wide. He's going to kind of be that big slot hybrid type of big slot, tight end type of hybrid or whatever. So I think that he's going to have a big season. I do, because I think that he's a mismatch weapon. I think he has length. I think he's got a big body. I think he's a really good athlete for the position. But but obviously that's projection. And then you're completely projecting, well, at the next level, is he going to play any inline? Because we haven't really seen him block at all. I mean, there's a lot of fun stuff as a wide receiver and something you can get really excited about. And maybe the blocking stuff doesn't matter, but I mean, that's a huge wild card in the conversation right now.
Yeah, I don't even. He's got the build now to be a blocker and to provide some impact as a blocker. I remember I was watching those clips from 2020. I didn't do as much of a deep dive on film because, how much of an impact is it really to evaluate a guy off his 2020 tape? But, I saw somebody who I was thinking at 240 had room to add to his frame. He looked like he had a high schooler's body. He wasn't really that physically developed. And this is like a weird thought, but it's as if him getting really fat and getting up to 230, I don't know how much he was working out, as if like it was bodybuilders, the way that they train is that they bulk and then they cut. So they overconsume, they get way too big, and then they cut down. And it's almost like he inadvertently did that. And I don't know how much he was working out. It's almost like he wasn't paying attention to how much he was weighing. he got really, really freaking big and he had the body type to do it. And then the coaches were like, you need to lose some weight. And now he's down to 265. And I think that's maybe why he's so freaking rocked up now, because I immediately after watching the freshman year clips, I put on those spring game clips that you did. And I'm like, holy crap, he's like double the size and he's not really that fat. Like, and I know that you can say that he maybe needs to lose a little bit of weight. The commentators were saying that in the game, but seeing what he does fluidly as an athlete, the way that he's able to move, run routes, when he was 240, I mean, I would not be shocked if this is a 4.4 kid. Like, he was really that fast. And maybe he is used a little bit more as a receiver. He can move, and I wonder, maybe does he need to get down a little bit lower? But he's got the body type that you want in a tight end. It's just, how does he fit into an offense that already has all of those guys that you mentioned?
Yeah, it's just an imperfect comparison between him and Michael Mayer. If he hits his ceiling, then him and Michael Mayer are very different players, right? Like, he's more a Kyle Pitts mold of a tight end. Like, that's more of, he's a move piece. He's going to play multiple spots. Like, that's going to be kind of his thing. It's going to be fascinating, though, because immediately, and this is speculation for a second because you don't know the full truth. My first thought is, why are you 300 pounds? Why did that happen, right? And people are going to talk about that. And I don't know if that was just a laziness thing. I don't know if it was a maturity thing. I don't know if there was some mental, the mental illness side of things. I don't know. Like, that part is purely speculation on my part. But you can bet your butt that people are going to ask the question. They're going to say, Arik, so why did you opt out? Why were you 300 pounds? Is that true? Like, why did that happen, type of thing, right? And it can be unfair, but it also can be fair at points, right? Because that is a red flag that you have to work through a little bit. Regardless of that, though, just the player in a vacuum. If he hits a ceiling, he's a potential first-round player. Yes, as just a pure receiver, body type, hands, route running upside, athleticism, impact as a pass receiver. He's a first-round type of player. It could happen. But there is projection, and there are questions that need to be answered. It's just point blank to it.
And I going into this, admittedly, watching him, I set low expectations for myself. I didn't really know what I was going to expect, but I got a lot more excited once I actually got to see what he was capable of. I think the projection is fair. I think it's fair to say that if he does hit, this is somebody who should be a first-round pick. It kind of reminds me, as you're saying, it's a weird comparison between Mayer and Gilbert. It reminds me of when we had that Hawkinson-Fant class, because Hawkinson and Fant were so completely different. It's hard to really, pinpoint who really fits better, because one's more of a receiver, one of them's a multi-impact tight end.
Yeah.
But the thing that does get tricky is once we know for sure, and I'm sure it'll come out during the postseason, coming into the combine, and when there's actually people who've done the real digging on what had happened there, I think that until we know for sure, you have to really say to yourself, it doesn't make sense to project this guy as a top 15 pick, even if he has an insane season. It's difficult to project this guy as a top 15 pick, because what if this is like a Jamarcus Russell who shows up to camp and he's 300 pounds one year because he was distracted, but maybe it was just a mental health thing. Maybe it was something that he was struggling off the field and why he put on the weight. There's just too many variables, which makes it a tough projection for a guy like that.
Yeah, and I'm glad that you said the mental health, because I think I accidentally said mental illness, and I think that's a good thing to just clarify for a second. I wasn't saying that he had mental illness. I'm saying if there was a mental health issue, because we know that it can be daunting being a college athlete. Like, it's not an easy thing, right? So just did not want to sound insensitive. I apologize if I did. But yeah, I think that this is going to be a classic. He's a first-round caliber talent. Can he hit his ceiling as a player? That's the first question we need to answer. And then after that, it's the question of, how much do you want this, right? Like, is this a long-term thing that you really want? And can you take the actions necessary to get it? I mean, there's going to be a conversation piece. Like I said, I mean, we see guys every year that drop further than they should based upon talent, because there's some question mark on the field, or off the field, or whatever it might be. So there's a question to be answered for Arik Gilbert. For now, I'm excited to see him get back on a football field, because I think he's going to be a really, really good player for Georgia. I mean, him him combining with Brock Bowers and Darnell Washington, it's the best. If you want to phrase Gilbert as a wide receiver, you can. But I mean, like, let's be honest, he's a tight end, and that's a crazy tight end room.
I'm laughing because I'm just thinking of how good they're going to make Stetson Bennett look, and I can't wait for the people to come out of the woodwork and talk about him as a possible prospect.
It's gonna happen, man. It's gonna happen. You know what it reminds me of, Joe? I remember that Miami Hurricanes team, like the 2001 team. I think they had Jeremy Shockey, Kellen Winslow Jr., and like that's what it is right now, man. Because
was it Greg Olsen there?
Greg Olsen may have been
an underclassman.
He might have been
previously at Notre Dame. I need to look that up.
Yeah, he might have been on the tail end of the roster. You may be very well. You may be right about that. So I mean, you have a guy in Arik Gilbert who, if he hits a ceiling,
oh no, it was 2007 was when he came out. So that
okay, so yeah, he was off the roster at that point. Then he may have overlapped with Winslow for 1 year then, but either way, it's still a crazy trend of tight ends that were there at Miami. But I mean, literally on this roster right now, you might have Arik Gilbert if he plays to his talent and he answers off the field concerns, maybe a first round pick. Brock Bowers this time next year, we're talking about as a potential first round pick. And Darnell Washington is going to play football on the NFL level, and he's a draftable type player at 6'7", 265. So crazy tight end room that Georgia has right now.
Yeah, going to be really excited to see what Arik Gilbert and that Georgia offense do this upcoming season. We're also going to be very eagerly watching Michael Mayer and how good he could be in this likely final season playing for the Fighting Irish. Folks, thanks for tuning in. At Joe DeLeone, at Rise and Draft, at NFL Prospects Pod, and the Hack City YouTube channel. Be sure to hit that subscribe button. We'll be back for more later in the week.